With a master's in food business degree from the prestigious Culinary Institute of America, Jason Wallace, a former executive chef restaurateur, is an innovative restaurant operations scientist. Wallace's client list reflects all genres of food service, including startups, quick service, full and limited service restaurants. Wallace's educational seminars for leadership development have been attended by prominent restaurant companies. As a food service educator, Wallace has served as a professor and guest lecturer at the New York Restaurant School, the Art Institute, Hudson and Westchester County Colleges. Wallace has been an active member of the New York State Restaurant Association, which was established in 1935, holding various leadership positions, including treasurer, vice chairman of the board of directors, and in 2010, Wallace became the first African-American chairman of the board for the New York State Restaurant Association.
Welcome. Yes, welcome to another episode. Hidden Figures Behind the Numbers with the Restaurant Scientist. My name is Jason Wallace, and I am the Restaurant Scientist. And today, we're going to pivot. We're going to take a different angle where I get a lot of questions on social media asking about startups. And I think it's time for me to address some of the sequential areas, items that we need to talk about when we start to understand starting up a restaurant. So today I have a distinguished guest that I'm proud of and happy to introduce to you, and to say he's probably my best friend, the best entrepreneur advisor that I have. And his name is Jason Wallace. Welcome, Jason Wallace, the Restaurant Scientist, to the show. Yeah. So thank you. No, you're too kind. Sit down. But no, so on a serious note, I want to speak to those out there that have the desire, the passion to either start a restaurant or to expand. So let's start by saying or asking ourselves a question. And the question is, why restaurants don't grow? Like, why do we see a brand out there, an individual restaurateur, restaurant operations, that hits a plateau operationally in terms of total sales, or even the growth from trying to go from one unit to another unit? Now, let me just put a disclaimer out there and say, not every restaurateur has the desire or the aspirations to actually open up multiple units. So I want to say we're going to eliminate those individuals that are very content and happy with owning and operating one restaurant. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about those brands and those concepts and those individuals that truly desire to grow, whether it's multiple units that are owner-operated, multiple units that will be licensed deals, or owner-operators that ultimately want to get to a franchise situation. So either way is fine. Those are the three options we have. We either self-operate, we either do licensing deals, or we're going to franchise. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, what is our exit strategy? So when I begin to think about a concept, before I even sign a lease, before I even start looking for a space for my concept, I first have to ask myself and my team, one, how much money do we actually have access to? Two, what's the long range plan, right? Long range meaning 5 years or greater. Mid range meaning 3 to 5 years. Short term meaning 1 to 3 year plan, because that's how leases are signed. And you would not want to find yourself in a situation signing a lease that is too short of time to get the initial investment back, right? So what I mean by that is, if you're going to spend, let's say, $200,000, I can't imagine anyone open up a restaurant for less than $200,000, even if it's a second generation restaurant, meaning that you're going into a space that was formerly a restaurant and you're just going to make equipment upgrades, plumbing facilities, right? Facilities maintenance, plumbing, electrical upgrades, or decor upgrades, right? So that's a second generation restaurant. But even in that situation, I think people are misled by thinking that you can open up a restaurant for $100,000. You can, but I would not recommend it, because just in working capital alone, after you've gotten to the point of where you're open, you still need payroll for 2 or 3 months. You still need the ability to pay your invoices, your food purveyors and your beverage purveyors for 2 to 3 months. You need to pay your rent. So just the working capital alone for a restaurant that might be paying $4,000 a month rent, 3 months of rent is $12,000. If your payroll is $5,000 a month, $5,000 a week or greater, $5,000 a week, 4 weeks is $20,000 for 1 month's worth of working capital. Working capital is defined as the amount of money that it takes to pay your short-term debts until the revenues come in. Most of the revenues do come in within a 48-hour period of time now, because even if people are swiping a credit card, that money does hit your account within 48 to 24 hours. So, but working capital is also the ability to handle things that may come up, emergencies. So let's take a deeper dive into the original question, why restaurants don't grow, right? So one, lack of direction, right? So a lack of direction would also include a lack of leadership. Now, people confuse management with leadership. Most restaurant CEOs, operators, are CEOs by default because you started a company. And to acquire the CEO mind frame, right, mindset of what it takes to actually lead is a whole different conversation. And I will have myself back on my show to talk about leadership once we get to that point, okay? But we're talking about a restaurant needing to grow has to understand from its inception, from the idea of, one, how much money do we have to work with? And it's dangerous to work undercapitalized. But we know that many of us entrepreneurs have started out undercapitalized for generations, because that's been the story, right? That's the only way we can get started. And I'm not shitting on that, right? I'm not discouraging you from doing that. I'm just saying when in all possible, it's very difficult to get into the restaurant industry without at least $200,000, right? So lack of leadership, why we don't grow. Corporate infrastructure is, again, what I'm talking about is the ability to understand that there is a CEO. You have to have the framework and your mindset that says that I'm starting a food service entity, right? I'm starting a hospitality group. Even if the group starts with one restaurant, even if the group doesn't have a desire to open up more than one restaurant, you still have to set, from the very beginning, you have to set that framework in your mind that says we're going to be leaders, not managers. We're going to have infrastructure, and infrastructure means human resources, bookkeeping and accounting, financing, marketing, facilities maintenance, which includes 4 walls, floors, ceilings, right? As well as human resources, right? Human resources, I said that already. Human capital, right? Which is the ability to recruit and train and develop talent from within your organization, right? And then the last piece we need is standards, right? Standard operating procedures that allow us to have all that infrastructure in place so that we can truly grow, okay? So when we understand about starting up a restaurant, we have to think about the end game, and we have to think about the corporate level infrastructure. Many independent restaurateurs are caught up in the minutia of the day-to-day operation, and they become, in the beginning, they become managers and cooks, right? Opening and closing a restaurant. But at some point in time, you need to transition over into the actual CEO, which is driving the brand, increasing revenue, increasing profits, and developing talent from within your organization. So I'm going to speak to the individuals out there that, again, are looking to improve themselves as CEOs and leaders and start a restaurant. Let's identify from a marketing point of view, what are your yearly goals, yearly objectives? So you'll hear me say this all the time. Understand the calendar. Understanding the calendar means that there's 52 weeks in a year. And there's 13 weeks in each quarter. And you need to master each quarter by mastering each week. So Monday becomes the first day of the week. Sunday becomes the seventh day of the week. And everything that you do with between that Monday and that Sunday needs to be captured in every sense of the word, captured, meaning top number sales, food costs, beverage costs, labor costs, which is also called prime costs, as well as understanding the objectives of each individual week. Because if my break-even point is not achieved for this week, and it's week 12, then that means in week 13, I need to overcome or exceed not only just week 13's goals, but I also need to cover the gap between week 11 and week 12's goals, right? So mastering the calendar and understanding that there's only 52 weeks in a year is very critical for starting a restaurant. Because when you do your financial projections, which ultimately will lead you to a go or no-go decision, those financial objectives have to be accurate. Those financial projections have to be accurate, right? Because the objective is to figure out it's going to cost me $200,000 to start up. I'm just using that as a number. It could be 4, it could be 6, it could be $1 million. How long is it going to take me to generate revenue and control those revenues and those expenses as an operator so that profit hits the bottom line that ultimately pays me back as the investor or my investors, friends and family, back their original investment. So if 1 penny on every $1 million is $10,000 and you spend $100,000 on opening a restaurant, how many pennies on that dollar is it going to take you? How many months, how many weeks is it going to take you to get your initial investment back? No one's doing this as a hobby. So the investment has to come back as fast as possible. And then the interest on that investment has to begin to accumulate. So this is all part of starting and developing a business plan. But the foundational understanding of the finances and the operating expenses has to be realistic. People have these far-fetched ideas of how much money we're going to make, or I don't have to pay myself. That's not a good business model. That's not a good plan to go into signing a lease that immediately is going to become due. Well, not immediately. You should negotiate a little time in there for build out. But your mindset should be thinking like a banker, right? Because the banker is going to want, if you go to a bank for a loan, the bank's going to want to know, how do you plan to pay this loan back? What's the risk assessment associated with lending you this money? How long, what interest rate am I going to charge you? And where do your profits need to be in order to yield enough profit to pay back the loan as well as pay all your other operating expenses, including you as an operator, because you still have to live. You still have personal expenses that you have to cover. So we're talking about restaurant startup here, people. We want to go and we want to understand what it takes to be the CEO of a hospitality group. And even if your group is only planning to do run restaurant, you still need to think that way. 2, we're going to talk about research and development on the startup phase. Research and development includes developing your list of menu items, food, as well as beverages. And then think about internal ways to market that. And building a brand, there's a difference between brand and marketing. Brand is long-term. Marketing is what we do short-term. Brand is your brand identity. It's important for you to understand how we achieve this, because this is how we create brand equity and loyalty. That's not marketing. I know many of us think marketing is branding. It's not. We need to chase them, and we need to make those individuals loyal to our brand, right? External marketing and then public relations. So we're talking about thinking about all of those things during the startup conceptual phase, right? Because it's concept development, not based upon your personal opinions about what you think or how you want your restaurant to look or feel or what's on the menu. I don't eat meat, so I won't have meat on my menu. I do eat meat, but I don't eat pork. All those personal things need to be included, but also excluded from the actual vision when it comes to understanding what a beachhead, right? Beachhead is when you come to the beach, like, who is your target market? TAM, right? Target area market. Who is your avatar customer? What do they want? How do they travel between work, home, and play? How is your position? How is your business positioned within there so that you can get them either on their way to work or on their way home from work or on their way to church or on their way home from church or on their way to play, whether it's, and that play could become your operation, right? Your entity, your business, where now they're relaxing. All right, let's go out and let's have a meal, whether it be a sandwich or a full service, fine dining establishment, and everything in between, okay? So the topic here is restaurant startup. We're talking about concept development. We're talking about understanding that it's all emotions. We've been lied to for years that it's business, it's not personal. That's a lie, right? It's not true. Everything we do is personal, because it lies in our brain scientifically in the limbic system, which is the foundation and the core of all our decision making. So when you like something, you like it. You know that. When you don't like it, you don't like it. But it definitely is part of your purchasing decision. And that's the way we need to think about it, because what we need to get into the mind of is our customers and understand what makes them make a purchasing decision and why should they purchase coffee from you instead of from Starbucks or from Dunkin' Donuts. Why should they purchase a sandwich from you instead of Jersey Mike's, right? Why should they purchase a cookie from you instead of Dave's Cookies, right? You can go down the list and you'll see that what I'm telling you is true. All this shit is personal. It really is. Even when it comes to who's going to lend you money, right? You're going to go out to your friends, your family. If you can go to the bank, you'll go to the bank, and the bank is going to take it personal when they look at your income statements and they see how much money you're putting in, or they see that you've been operating a business that hasn't been generating a profit. It's hard for you to go and say, well, we have been generating profit, but I'm lying on paper, right? I'm not telling you the truth on paper. I haven't paid any income tax, or I'm only keeping 2% of 100% of the money that came in the door. That sounds like a risky investment. So we need to think like bankers. I said that a few minutes ago. We have to be thinking like bankers. So we have to put on our personal hat and say, okay, if I was a banker, would I lend to me? If I was a cousin or an uncle or a mother or a father, would I lend to me? Depends on how emotionally I'm attached to myself, right? And these numbers, and how realistic. Do I really believe that this place is going to do $1 million a year and profits is going to be $300,000? Or do I believe this place is going to do $1 million a year and profits is going to be $30,000? Or do I believe this place is going to do $1 million a year and it's going to lose $30,000 in revenue and profits? There's only 3 positions a business could be in. Losing money, breaking even, or making money. That's it. There's only three. There's no other position. Break even, your expenses 100% of your revenue. Losing money, your expenses exceed your revenue. Making money, your expenses are less than your revenue. Which one are you? Which one are you putting into a business model, financial plan? And how are you going to sell it? So, what does that mean? From a startup point of view, once you start looking at the top number income, right? Meaning that, okay, we expect to do $2,000 a day. Just going to come up with something simple. 7 days a week, that's $14,000 a week. So, let me help you out. If you're going to do $2,000 a day or $14,000 a week, because you can do some weeks, some days you might do $4,000, other days you might do $1,000, right? That's a quick service restaurant concept, right? Quick service restaurant concepts should generate anywhere north of $15,000 a week. I'm gonna let that marinate. There's a little nugget for you, right? Meaning that if you're looking at starting a business that's generating less than $15,000 a week, personally, I told you this shit is emotional, I wouldn't fuck with you. You shouldn't fuck with you, right? You should not be thinking about starting a business that generates a restaurant business. I don't know about any. I don't know about the jewelry business. I don't know about the logistics business. I don't know about any other type of retail. I'm talking about restaurants, right? Even if it's a quick service, right? QSR, quick service restaurant, sandwich spot. Blimpies, Subways, Jersey Mike's, all the way up to McDonald's, Burger King's, a juice bar. It doesn't matter. Coffee shop. If we ain't doing $2,000 a day in sales, what in the fuck are we doing? For real, people. Like, what are we doing? Labor, I'm in the New York market. Minimum wage, $16. Who can you hire for less than $16 an hour these days? So even at $16 an hour, 10 hours a day, right? That's $160 a day right there, just in labor on one person. Right? So let the numbers speak to our emotions. That's just one person. So I don't know any business that can run without daily labor costs, absolute dollar values, of less than $300 a day. Now you say, well, I'm the owner. Well, you ain't paying yourself. That's foolish. I think that's stupid. I think that why would I open up a business and I know I got mortgage or rent, I got car note, I have to eat, I got other personal expenses where I'm gonna start a business that I'm not gonna pay myself. So you're not gonna hear that from me. You'll hear it from other people. And I'm not saying that I'm right and they're wrong. I'm just telling you from my point of view, I would not take the risk of starting a business that wasn't going to pay me. I would get a job, keep a job, and keep one foot as an employee and keep another foot as an employer, and I would work those schedules out. There's only one letter between employee and employer. There's a big mentality shift because even sometimes when we lack leadership abilities, right? We still think like employees, not employers. So I'm not shitting on your dream. I'm not saying don't start that restaurant. I'm saying be realistic about the cost of starting that restaurant. And if that means that I'm going to work a regular job where I know I have a paycheck coming in at night or in the morning or whenever the hours allow me to do so that I can start and run my dream restaurant too. So I'm doing both. That's fine. Do that. But understand where I'm going back to my initial thought process here is that anything less than $2,000 a day, $14,000 a week is a risky restaurant. No matter whether it's, definitely we ain't talking about no full service. Forget about that. We ain't even there yet. We're talking about a quick service restaurant. Any cafes, any juice bars, any coffee shops, any tea shops, all those little cute things where people come up with these concepts and they want people to come around, sit on their laptops and work. You know, I'm not that guy. Fuck all that, right? This is not a hobby for me. If I can't generate enough money where I'm going to be able to get my initial investment back within 36 to 48 months, that's 3 years to 4 years, the initial investment, sooner the better. But I need to get my initial investment back so that I can then start getting a return on my investment, because that's the whole idea of investing, is to get a return greater than what you get. High risk, high reward, right? So we're talking about starting a restaurant. So before we haven't even looked for a lease yet. We're having these types of hard conversations with ourselves, or me, the restaurant scientist. And I want to help you get to your dream, but I got to beat you up a little bit, because sometimes we're too emotional about our passion instead of being more emotional about our investment and our return on investment. And, you know, sign a 2-year lease. You're not even going to get your money back in 2 years, and the lease is over. And what if you're successful? Now the landlord's jacked the rent up on you, right? So you got to weigh the risks. It's a cost of capital. And we have to understand that cost of capital. And I talk about that later in some of my other accounting and, you know, more advanced accounting 2.0 classes and things of that nature. So we're talking about starting up a restaurant and putting together a business plan. And it starts with the financials. It always starts with that top number. So QSRs, the next one is what? Maybe a casual dining, right? Where now QSR may not have 20 seats at all. It's mostly primarily you walk in, you place your order, and you're taking it home with you. It's strictly to go. They may not even have, and most QSRs will design it to be just below the Department of Health seating capacity so that you don't have to provide customer restrooms. Right? That's a known thing in our industry, right? So if I don't want to provide customer restrooms, I will make sure that I have less than 20 seats. And people know that we're a true QSR. But again, if I'm not generating at least $14,000 a week in sales, I question the concept, or I question the location, or I question both. And if I'm questioning both, I need to question myself as the CEO of this sinking ship before it even takes off from the fucking pier. Right? So understand what we're talking about here. We're talking about starting a restaurant, understanding the categories, right? So the next category would be that restaurant that's going to generate from $15,000 a week to say $35,000 a week, which still could be a QSR, which should be a QSR. Because now you're really understanding how we equate. Now, I'm a licensed real estate agent, and I only do commercial real estate spaces for restaurants. So when I start analyzing the space, I want to also determine how much revenue can I generate per square foot. So I start doing a whole nother set of math calculations to determine, am I really maximizing the square foot of this place before I move to the next place? Because ultimately for me, I'm trying to create a proof of concept. And even though the goal may not be to open up more than one restaurant, we still need a proof of concept. We still need a prototype, is what they use in the fast food world. All right? We need a prototype. So we don't know if your prototype works yet. We don't know if your prototype is profitable yet until we do all these financial analysis. So that's me, the data geek, right? So I'm going to take all these numbers, I'm going to divide them by square footage, I'm going to divide them by daily payroll, I'm going to divide them by weekly payroll. I'm going to come up with all these ratios to really determine how effective you are as a CEO, of a leader of your brand, and how profitable is your concept. And it's going to feel real fucking personal, because it is, right? So understand when I'm talking to you, like this is coming from a position of love and respect and admiration, is not trying to shit on dreams. And the reason why I take this approach is because the restaurant industry, my industry that I love, that has been really good to me, has a black eye and a bad reputation for restaurants failing. And I take it personal because many of us will start a restaurant without, like, I have multiple degrees, undergraduate and graduate degrees, all in this restaurant game. So I do take it personal when people come from other industries and jump in, and then it don't work. Then they jump back to their industry. Meanwhile, my industry takes a black eye, and I go to the bank and they say, oh, man, restaurants are risky. Yeah, they're fucking risky because we got clowns coming in trying to open them up who don't know, who don't respect, don't even understand serve safe sanitation, don't even understand cost control, don't even know what prime cost is, but yet that's affecting me personally. So I do take that personal, which is why I take the approach is I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you turn this into maximum profit. And I'm here to help our industry grow by bringing quality eating and drinking establishments to our communities, because it's the independent operators that actually make up the fabric of our communities, right? We don't really, no disrespect to fast food chains, right? There's a lane out there for them. But I can tell you that if you really want a vibrant, if you go to any city that is known as a food town, which is what we're doing, which is what I'm personally on a mission to do for the city of Newark, is to make it a food town. Is no disrespect to fast food franchises, but we don't really want fast food franchises littered downtown. We can have a few scattered, but we want independent operators to come with their beautiful concepts that you have in your mind, right? The flavor palette that you have on your palates and your tongues, the vision that you have, that's what I want to work with. It's going to feel a little abrasive when we start understanding the numbers and the economics and the profitability, and I start talking all this restaurant scientist shit, but it's only because at the end of the day, no one wants you to win more than me. No one wants you to win more than me. So I want restaurateurs to come to the city of Newark and other underserved cities and communities and bring the fabric of our ethnic backgrounds and all of our colorful cuisines and flavor styles and profiles and all that, and beverages. But we gotta run them like CEOs. We can't run them like mom and pop did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. We stand on those shoulders, don't get me wrong. I pay homage to all of the individual restaurateurs and leaders and trailblazers in our communities for years. I stand on their shoulders and pay homage. But now I'm too educated to know what I didn't know and what they didn't know. I got too much education, I got too much passion, I got too much drive, too much work ethic to now sit back and hoard this information. God has blessed me with knowledge and abilities and skills, and my job is to share it, give it away if I have to, literally, for free, because that's how I'm going to continue to be blessed. My blessings will come back to me when I begin to educate those that have that vision and that dream. So again, it may sound a little abrasive. It may sound hard, but it's not hard. It's actually easy because you see the change. So now let's pay respect to the chain operators. How is it possible for Jersey Mike's to open up 300 restaurants in 1 year? Gotta give them fucking respect, man. Gotta give them respect. That's because they understand what I'm talking to you about. I'm sharing this information with you, this financial information, right? This educational information, this leadership information, Six Sigma, process improvement, agile framework, all those things that are applicable to making your operation more profitable. That's what we're talking about starting up a restaurant. That's where we are with it. All right? So it's important to understand that now we start segueing over into, and the last part I'm going to leave you with is once we get to that point where we talked about for those restaurants that are going to do $14,000 a week. Then we talked to those restaurants that are going to do between $14,000 and $35,000 a week. Those are numbers that we can make money from. Those are numbers that we can pay back investors from. Those are numbers that we can see a return on investment from. That's what I'm talking about. Like, this is not a hobby. This is how we can build wealth. And then more importantly, We can do it again and again because now we know what we did right. We understand the revenue that we're generating per square foot. We understand the cost of human capital. We understand return on investment. We understand lease negotiations. We understand all of these things. And now we have the framework and the proof of concept and the prototype to do this shit again and again and again and again. Right? So now we move, let's talk about those restaurants that are doing $35,000 a week and up. There are plenty of them out there. Some of you are my clients. That's how I know, right? I'm talking about somebody who's doing $4 million, $5 million, $6, $7 million a year in business. I know. Now you're talking my pedigree, right? Now you're talking about what is easy to me because I understand operations. I understand leadership. I understand education, right? I don't even look at myself as a consultant. I'm an educator. And my job is to teach you how to think like me. You don't have to go. So here's a good part. I talk shit about having educations and some people getting into the industry and they don't, right? Don't worry about that shit. You got me. That's what I do, right? So I can come into your organization or I can sit down with you and I can teach you everything that I know literally within 12 months. Most of the time between 3 to 6 months. My job, my purpose, my deliverable is when I leave you, you are the CEO of your brand. And I've given you a master's level education. That is the purpose of the restaurant scientist. That is the purpose of behind the numbers of the restaurant scientist. That's why God, like all that, I will never play basketball like LeBron James, Michael Jordan. I'll never play football like Michael Vick. Right? I'm kind of old school, so Mike was a beast, man. Right? All those old school athletes that I watched growing up, I never really wanted to be them, even though I was athletic, even though I understood. And I also understood that no matter how hard I practiced, I was never going to be 6'4", 230 and run a 4'1", right? 40. I was never going to be Bo Jackson, who I feel like is the greatest athlete that ever lived. Followed by Deion Sanders, right? So, but I knew that I was not going to be them because they had God-given abilities. So God has blessed me with some abilities and talents too that no one else has, which makes me unique, right? But now, in order for me to keep my blessings flowing, I have to teach, I have to educate. So restaurants north of $35,000 a week in sales. Now we're doing something. So we got two options. We can either have two restaurants that are doing $20,000 a week and we got $40,000 a week in sales. Now we're building wealth, people. Or we have one restaurant doing $40,000 a week in sales. When you extrapolate that out, right? 52 weeks. Talking about a $4 million operation, right? $5 million operation, $6 million operation. Now I'm cool with that, right? I'm cool with that. If I look at that Jersey Mike's model, he opened up over 300 stores this year alone. That's a fact. That's true. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy. But now imagine each store is generating, let's say, a modest $500,000 a year in sales. Do the math. 300 stores generating $500,000. So let's do it. Let's go the other way. Let's say they're doing an average unit sales of $1 million in sales. 300 stores doing $1 million. That's $300 million. And when we keep them 10% of that, we keep them 5% of that, right? We don't want to keep north of 10. That's the easy part for me, where I could teach you that. But I have to first get you to understand the entire ecosystem from concept development, starting the restaurant up, cost controls, operating controls, all those things. And then more importantly, we start talking about the entire ecosystem, purchasing, receiving, storing, preparation, and the service of food and beverage, which also includes understanding the balance sheet, assets, liabilities, and owner's equity, temporary accounts as revenue and expenses, right? And the statement of cash flow, investing, operating, and financing activities, right? So when we start understanding this, and it's easy for me to teach you this, it just makes it all better. Makes it all better. More better, make it more better, baby. So, having said all of that, I'm gonna leave it there for now. There's a lot more coming. I will have myself back on the show. I have to admit, I got my guys in the studio. I'm probably the best guest I've ever had, right? Thank you. No, Keely. Too kind. Yeah, man. Confidence, slippery slope, arrogance, cockiness. But I don't see it as that. I see it as blessings, man. I see it as God is the wind beneath my wings, and He's given me God-given abilities and talents and knowledge, and I really just want to share it with the masses. So, stay tuned for future episodes, from startup restaurants to operating restaurants to creating brands that will allow us to do multiple unit concepts, licensing deals, as well as franchising. So, until we meet again, I want to thank you for watching. My name is Jason Wallace, and I am the Restaurant Scientist. Power to the people.